Hello, this is Sandy Gallagher welcoming you back to another lesson in Thinking into Results. I hope you're beginning to see that you have a major role in the way your work life unfolds every day. The lessons you're learning here will provide you with new opportunities to collaborate and to create and to thrive, while at the same time helping your company prosper. We all have deep, deep reservoirs of potential within us. But how do you recognize it? And how do you bring it to the surface? It has to do with how you think. What's coming into your mind that influences your output? What are you thinking about? Is it what you want or is it what you don't want? Are you thinking about problems or are you thinking about solutions? One of my favorite quotes is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And it has a special meaning for this upcoming lesson. He says, we become what we think about all day long. It's your choice, what you give your attention to and what you think about all day, every day. Remember, you have control over the thoughts you think. Now here's Bob to help you understand a better way to think. Feed your mind what it needs to produce the outcomes that you most desire.
Hello there and welcome. I am going to introduce you to a concept that literally changed the course of my life. And I could take you into executive offices from Kinabalu to Kentucky. And the executive officers would tell you that this concept literally changed the direction of their company. It made a bigger difference on the bottom line of their financial statement than any other one idea they'd ever entertained. But before I get into that idea, let me tell you how I came across it. You know, many years ago, I was sitting in a fire hall in Toronto. That was the best job I'd ever had. I was earning $4,000 a year and I owed $6,000. My whole day was filled with, how can I get these creditors off my back? And I was introduced to this book. This is the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the man that gave it to me said, Bob, you're quite capable of changing the direction of your life. And he said, if you do what this author says, everything in your life is going to change. Now, I did not believe that. There's no way that I could believe that. But I'll tell you what I did. This guy was so adamant, and he talked to me on a number of different occasions, that I believed in his belief in me. See, I didn't believe in myself. I had no formal education, I had no business experience, and the idea of changing my life was the furthest thing from my mind. Then he asked me, he said, well, who are you? And I said, I'm Bob. I thought it was a dumb question. I said, you know who I am? No, he said, that's who you think you are. But he said, Bob and Proctor are just two words, that's your name. Isn't it strange how we look at a person, we'll say, that's Sandy, that's Todd, you know, that's Bob. No, that's their name, but it's not them. Bob and Proctor are two words. I'll probably use those two words for my name all the time I'm here. But it's not me. And I said, well, then, this is me. No, he says, that's not you. He said, that's your body. And I'm thinking, I'm not my name, and this isn't me. See, I couldn't figure out where he was going. Now, what he was trying to do is help me understand who I was. If I was going to change the results in my life, I better know who I am. Now, do you know that you can go all the way through our educational system? You can go to some of the most prestigious universities in the world and leave there and know very little about yourself. Gather a lot of information, but not know who you are. Most people do think they're their name. They think this is me. But you've never heard anyone say, am hand. You've never heard anyone say, am head, am body. We say, my hand, my head, my body, my name, and my results. And that's how this man approached it. His name was Ray Stanford. Ray's gone now, but he was without question one of the best friends I'll ever have. And then he suggested that I read that book. He said, do you ever read anything? And I said, no, I can't read. Now, that wasn't true. I could not well, but I could. You see, I found out that I read about as well as most people. Do you know the average person reads at around a grade 7 level? And that's because we learned to read by the time we're in grade 7, and we never improve upon the skill from that point on. Do you know, life is It's rather strange. The most important things we never learn. Do you know that 1% of our population earns 96% of all the money that's being earned? The average person has absolutely no concept about how to earn money. We go through our educational system and never learn how. You could have a degree in economics and not learn how to earn money. Another thing we don't learn is we don't learn how to make decisions. That's why you have so many people wandering around saying, what do you think I should do? Well, you see, all this, as Ray pointed out, stems back to not knowing who we are. And so he got me thinking, and he said, start reading. He said, the secret of the ages are locked up in books. In fact, Robert Collier wrote a book, and that was the title of it, The Secret of the Ages. And he got me studying this, and I studied this book, and I kept reading, and I kept reading it, and I kept trying to do things, and everything started to change. I set a goal of earning $25,000. And, you know, in less than a year, I was earning $175,000. Then I took it over $1 million. But if you were to ask me what I had done, I couldn't tell you. You say, well, how'd you earn the money? Well, I started a business. You see, when I set the goal of earning money, I did what this man said. I wrote the goal on a card, I put the card in my pocket, and I read it as often as possible every day. A goal card. Isn't that strange? This is the direction I'm going in my life. This is where I'm going. And so I'd read it every day. Now, I had on the card that I was going to earn this $25,000. What'd that do? That caused me thinking of earning money. Now, prior to that, I was thinking of debt. You'd say, well, you know, is thinking of debt a bad thing? Well, we become what we think about. You say, but what about getting out of debt? If your goal is to get out of debt, it's the worst goal you'll ever set, because you're thinking that you'll be in it. You've got to think prosperity. And so I started to read this card, and I started to hear people talking about earning money. Somebody said there's good money cleaning floors. I said, I'm not proud, I'll clean floors. Well, you know, I ended up cleaning floors in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. I kept reading this book. And then I found Earl Nightingale's condensed narration of this book, and I started to play a long playing record, drive around with a record player in a car. My behavior was rather strange. I didn't know anyone else that was doing this. And anyone that knew me didn't know anyone else that was doing it. And they thought, why is he doing this? And I didn't know. Now, my life changed so dramatically, and I couldn't find anyone that could tell me what really happened. Now, most people that earn a lot of money, they're not really interested in what they do so different. They just enjoy the money. That didn't settle with me. I wanted to know, why did I change? See, I had been raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't win. I was raised to believe if you haven't got business experience, you can't get a good job. I was raised to believe all kinds of things that are not true. They are not true. Now, I'm not anti-education. I made sure my kids went through school. In fact, I think studying and education is sacred. I have a great library of books now. That was the first book I ever read. I have thousands of books. And I've been reading them all, and I've been reading now for 50 years. I just can't read enough. I want to learn more, but I wanted to find out why I changed. And I couldn't find anybody that could tell me. I could find no one that could tell me. I thought it was the book and the records. I bought the book and I gave it to people, and I gave them records, and nothing happened. Well, I began to study, and I was living in Chicago at the time, and I heard about a man in Vancouver, British Columbia. His name was Leland Val Van der Waal. He was a great big man. And they said, you should go and listen to him. He's wise. He knows a lot of different things that people don't know. So I flew out to British Columbia. And when he was finished speaking, I went over and I said, I'd like to spend a couple hours with you. And I remember him looking at his watch, and he said, well, I'd probably like to spend a couple hours with you too. But he said, I've got to catch a plane. And I said, I didn't mean right now. I've got to catch a plane too. He said, where are you going? I said, I've got to go back to Chicago. He said, what are you doing in Chicago? I said, I live there. He says, you came all the way here for this seminar? And I said, yes. If I had known what I was going to get, I'd have walked all the way here. Now, I think he was impressed that I had traveled so far. But you know, when this man walked on the stage, the second he opened his mouth, I knew that he knew what he was talking about. And I made up my mind I was going to get to know him. Well, as it turned out, he wasn't going to be in Chicago anytime in the near future, but he was going to be in Toronto in a couple of weeks. And I said, I'm actually from Toronto. My family's still there. And I said, I'll fly over and meet you. Well, the two of us sat down in the Skyline Hotel. And it was supposed to be for a couple hours. We were there for 3 days. And he and I were just like that right up until he passed away. He was a phenomenal human being. He was wise. He had information that not many people have. And he sat down and he said, Bob, you live simultaneously on 3 planes of understanding. And I said, I know that. No, he said, you don't know, or you wouldn't have asked me the questions you're asking. And he says, shut up and listen, open your mind. And then he smiled. He said, you are a spiritual being. You have an intellect and you live in a physical body. 3 different planes of understanding. And he said, the mind is the greatest power in all of creation. And he quoted Dr. J.B. Rhine from Duke, who was alive at the time. And Rhine probably did more study into the power of the mind than anyone alive. And Dr. Rhine said, the mind is the greatest power in all of creation. Now he said, tell me what your front door looks like. And I thought, how can he go from the mind to my front door? And I said, what's that got to do with it? He said, just listen to me. What does your front door look like? So I described it to him. He said, tell me what your car looks like. What color is it? I said, it's white. He said, is it big or small? I said, well, it's fairly big. He said, there are 2 doors, 4 doors. And I said, there are 4 doors. He said, what color is the interior? And I said, it's tan. He said, see, you can describe your front door and you can describe your car, can't you? He said, tell me what color your refrigerator is. So I told him. He said, there are 2 doors or 4 doors? I said, there's 2 doors. He said, top and bottom or sides? And I said, top and bottom. He said, do they open to the left to the right or the right to the left? And I sort of stared into space. He says, now you see you've gone to your kitchen. You went into your kitchen and you mentally saw which way those doors open. Now he said, tell me what your mind looks like. I said, what? He said, tell me what your mind looks like. I said, I don't know. He said, are you inclined to think of the brain when I asked you that? And I said, yeah. He said, your brain is not your mind any more than your fingernail is. He said, this is one of the great problems in life. No one has ever seen the mind. And yet it's the mind that has to be changed if you're going to change results. Now he said, when I said think of your door, he said, I activated vocal cords. I set up a sound. It's a light message. Your hearing sense picked it up. And that light message went screaming down a nerve passageway and struck a group of cells in your brain. Those cells increased in amplitude of vibration, and the picture that's in them flashed on the front of your mind. So as I said your front door like that, a picture of the door come up. And I said your car, a picture of the car come up. Your refrigerator, picture of the refrigerator come up. But when I asked you to think of the mind, no picture. He said, you see, you have no cells of recognition for the mind. That's why people go in for analysis, and they go for years. You know why? They're trying to change something, they don't have a picture. And you and I think in pictures. We think in pictures. When I asked you to think of the car, a picture come on the screen of the mind. Now he said there was a doctor in San Antonio, Texas that understood that way back around 1934. And he said, you know, we've got a problem in the healing arts. He said, we're treating people physically, we're treating symptoms, and he said, until we treat the whole person, there's not going to be any health. Well, do you know, in corporations, we are treating symptoms. In business, we're treating symptoms. In sales, we're treating symptoms. We are not treating the cause of low profits. We're not treating the cause of low sales. And until we treat the primary cause, there's going to be no permanent change. And he pointed that out to me. He said, we've got to have a picture of the mind. Now he said, I'm going to draw a picture. This is a picture that Dr. Thurman Fleet drew in 1934. And he said, this is the mind. Now he said, look at it. And you look, you might smile. You just see a couple of circles and a couple of lines. We call this the stick person. Now I want you to let the large circle represent the mind and the small circle represent the body. Now the mind controls the body. The body is an instrument of the mind. Now I want you to think. I want you to stop and think of the performance of some people that you know. You can choose yourself if you want. It's the way we act, it's the behavior that's going to determine the results. Some people, when they meet a stranger, are very shy and they pull back. Others are very gregarious and they got their hand out and asking the person all kinds of interesting questions. The behavior of people varies greatly, but the nature of people, they're exactly the same. See, the mind operates the same for the shy person as it does for the gregarious person. It's how the mind is programmed with the shy person that's so different from the gregarious one. And the mind is programmed both genetic and environmentally. That's how paradigms are formed. But we talk about a little more about that in another lesson. What I want you to focus on is this drawing again. Come back to the drawing. Now let's take that large circle and we'll put a line right through the center. And we'll say everything on the top half is referred to as the conscious mind. Everything on the bottom half is referred as the subconscious mind. And of course the small circle on the bottom is the body. Now, this is what Val suggested I do. He said, I want you to let your head represent the mind. Everything from the neck down represent the body. Now he said that's not the way it is. Mind is in every cell of the body. Mind is movement, body's the manifestation of the movement. But we've got to have a picture to operate with. So the top half of the drawing is the conscious mind. That is the thinking mind. The bottom half is the subconscious, and that is the emotional mind. And of course, it's what's going on in the emotional mind that's going to determine what the body does. How do the ideas get into the emotional mind? Well, we put them there. Now, do you see, there is a great power that's flowing to and through us, and it never stops. And as this power flows into the consciousness, we have the ability to think. Do you know what the problem with most people is? They don't think. Do you see those little lines growing out of the conscious mind? They're called sensory factors. We can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And the sensory factors is what feeds information into the consciousness from the outside world. Now, we have been conditioned to live through those sensory factors. We've been conditioned to go by what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. As little kids in school, we get a report card. And the report card tells us what kind of student we are. And so we look at the report card, the teacher looks at the report card, we take it home, the parent looks at the report card, and that tells us what kind of a student we are, doesn't it? The truth is, it really doesn't. But that's the belief system we're operating with. The report card actually tells us where our mind was at for a few minutes, maybe 3 weeks ago. It has absolutely nothing to do with potential, but that's what the child believes. That's what the parent believes, and then we start treating them according to the grades they got on the card. Now that's rather sad, because when we leave school, we let the sales sheets dictate what kind of a salesperson we are. We let the balance sheet dictate what kind of an organization we are. And we let the balance sheet control everything we plan to do. The balance sheet is the report card. It just tells us what was going on in the past. It has absolutely no bearing with what's going to go on in the future unless we let it. And unfortunately, we've been letting it. You see, this little stick person here that we're looking at is every person. That's every person in an organization. And as the people start to understand how their mind operates and why they're doing what they're doing, I guarantee you the report card will change. It will change so dramatically, it will shock the person. And that's what happened to me. Here was a guy with no formal education, no business experience, a very poor work record, and like that, he was building a company that operated in a number of different cities, in 3 different countries, doing millions of dollars volume. And he had absolutely no idea what he was doing. He was operating with a picture. He had a picture in his mind of what he wanted, and through repetition, he planted that picture in the subconscious mind. And what was planted in the subconscious mind had to move into form. All right, now let's pay real close attention to this graphic illustration, because this is really the creative process on how it all works. There's a power flowing into your consciousness. This is your thinking mind, and this is where dreams are built. And you take those dreams and you impress them upon your subconscious mind. Now this is what causes the feeling in your consciousness. This is how you get emotionally involved in the idea. Those emotions then are expressed with and through the body, and that's what causes the body to change in its state of vibration. As the vibration changes, the action changes. And when your action changes, the universe reacts to that. It's action-reaction. The reaction alters your conditions, your circumstance, and your environment. Or, as we say, your results. Now that is a process. If you go through that a number of times, just keep playing this over and over again until it's indelibly printed on the screen of your mind. Then when you find that you're not feeling good, you know that you're emotionally involved with the wrong idea. Or if you find the things that are coming into your life are not to your liking, you've got to ask yourself, how am I acting? What am I emotionally involved with? What kind of ideas am I thinking? You see, this is the process. And as you understand it, then you can keep reflecting in your own life. And you'll know what's going on inside. You can always tell what's going on inside by what's happening on the outside. You know, James Allen, in his marvelous little book, As a Man Thinketh, he said, we think in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but our looking glass. Whatever's going on in your outside world is a reflection of what's going on in the inside world. You control the inside. Live from the inside out, and quit living from the outside in. So as we go through these lessons, this drawing becomes the genie. And you're going to understand why and how some of the senior executives in the world love this drawing. I'm going to tell you one thing. I love it. It's changed my life. It's helped me understand me better. And because I understand me, I understand you. See, if I stand back and watch how another person behaves, it's telling me what's going on in the mind. Now, the conscious mind is where we gather information. That's where we pile the books up. But that is not the part that controls the actions of the body. It's not what controls what we do. It's the subconscious mind that does that. See, the conscious mind thinks, the subconscious executes what's impressed upon it, and it expresses it with and through the body. It's the mind and the body that produces the results. And every person ought to understand how it works. We teach it to little children, and we see kids go from failing grades to honors just like that. We've all got the potential. We have got deep reservoirs of potential within us. And what we want to do is learn how to bring it to the surface. We're going to show you how to take all the knowledge your people have already gathered and how to put it to work. And you know where it goes? Right to the bottom line of your financial statement, of their report card, of their bank account. Every person has genius locked up within them. What we have to do is bring it to the surface. That's what this little stick person does. See, where we're thinking of ourselves, we get very confused thoughts. When we bring the stick person into play, we start to see the mind and the body. And we start to understand, if I'm doing this, it's because of what's going on in here. And if I want to change my behavior and results, I've got to change what's going on in the subconscious mind. You're going to learn to love this little drawing, the stick person. It certainly is the genie, and it's going to be the genie in your company. So do you see, when we talk about thinking into results, that's exactly what it's all about. Do you know that all the great leaders all down through history have agreed on one point? They've disagreed on virtually everything else. Every one of them, without exception, have agreed that we become what we think about. Do you know the problem with most people? Most people don't think. Earl Nightingale, my old employer and my mentor, he said if most people said what they were thinking, they'd be speechless. I'm inclined to agree with him. Dr. Ken McFarland, who's gone now, but he was a superintendent of schools over in Kentucky. And he was just an incredible human being, one of America's greatest speakers. He said 2% of the people think, 3% think they think, 95% would rather die than think. You'll say, well, everybody thinks. I'll tell you what to do. Start to pay attention to what people are saying. They'd never say what they were saying if they were thinking. Start to pay attention to what people are doing. They'd never do what they're doing if they were thinking. No. Mental activity does not constitute thinking. See, those sensory factors are like 6-lane highways. There's information rushing into people's conscious mind all the time. And some of it seeps into the subconscious. That's why they start doing this and they stop. And they go over here and they stop. And they go over there. Very few people are focused. We're going to show you, when we go into the lessons on the mental faculties, how to shut off those highways so that all this information that's rushing in and causing conscious confusion stops. And you become focused dedicated and disciplined. That's when your life's going to change. Study this little stick person. Take the lesson that's just on the stick person and review it over and over and over again. Start to see yourself as the stick person, and you'll see everybody else as one. And then you can observe what they're doing, and you know what's going on in their mind. And if you want to get them to change what they're doing, you're going to have to help them understand what's causing them to do what they're doing. I don't care if it's your children or if it's your employees. That's the way it works. I love this little drawing. It has certainly changed my life, and it'll change yours. It's Bob Proctor. Thank you.
We're really getting into thinking into results with this lesson, and one of the best ways to learn is repetition. So I encourage you to go over this lesson as many times as you can and use the graphic that Bob just introduced to us. It'll give you clarity on what's going on in your mind and in your behavior. I remember when I first saw this diagram, I thought it was pretty silly, but I'm telling you, it's powerful. This diagram is responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars, actually probably billions of dollars of increased revenue to corporations around the world. So study it until you really understand it. You'll keep getting more out of it every time you come back, I promise. Let your results guide you. What's happening on the outside always tells you what's going on inside. So what are your worthy goals that you set for your team? Are you seeing them manifest in your world? If not, the exercises for this lesson will help you shift your thinking in a way that leads you closer to those goals. And remember, you have control over the thoughts you think.